Okay, so um, what do you think we should talk about today?
So, I think that a topic that is really useful for us to discuss today is about the kind of culture shock that international students undergo when they start their first jobs, and what is some of the workplace culture in the UK, which is quite specific, that a lot of international students are not fully aware of when they start, but it's actually really useful for them to get familiarized with so that they actually have a good experience when they're transitioning into careers in the UK. How does that sound?
I think that sounds very interesting. But the fact that when an international student comes into the UK, they are facing their first cultural shock,
Absolutely.
and they have to go through this educational system, get to understand how communication has been done, get to understand how CV has been written. It's a different ballgame entirely. A lot of them go into the workforce a little bit blindly because probably some of people don't show them what it looks like a day in the life of someone who works within their role.
Yeah.
And I think there are some activities and experiences that cut across any sector. All
Yeah.
right, and I think that's what we're going to discuss today.
Perfect. There's a couple of things you mentioned that came like picked my attention straight away, and one of the things was education is different, and also once they start their first jobs, they're trying to they need to get familiar with things. So firstly, on education, let's recognize the fact as well that the education system that international students come from tend to be different, very different to the UK. One of the key things that I always hear from my clients is, oh, the education system is really different here. I really don't know how to prepare my essays and how I'm meant to write my coursework and so on. So it is very confusing to get used to that education style already. But then on top of that, let's assume that you spend 1 to 4 years in university, and now you feel a bit more familiar. Now you understood. You understood what the assignment is, so you figure that out. But then the preparation for when you're going into work should begin already whilst you're studying. Not to expect that you would be getting into your first job and only then starting to think about culture. This is why this kind of conversation is useful even for those who haven't found jobs yet, because cultural things start already from your interview,
Yeah.
from your application. The tone, the way you speak, the language that you're using, all of that will be really, really important. The way you communicate, written communication, we're going to get into it in a moment, but written communication, oh my God, I see so many mistakes with written communication all the time. So it's really worth looking into that and getting a clear understanding. And then on top of that comes your CV, that is super specific structure. Then it comes your cover letter, that is again very specific structure. Then your interview, which is also specific structure. I'm already giving it all away.
And I think, some couple of hours ago now, because I mean, it's now hours now, right? We were talking about, cultural fits.
Yes.
And you kind of mentioned that now. And it's kind of what we're trying to build with Isi and I. We wanted to kind of build some assessment to kind of help students to be able to have a cultural fit assessment before employer. Because
Yeah.
one thing I discovered when I came into the UK was that when you go for some jobs gives you a psychometric test.
Yes.
And it's never happened back home where I come from.
Yeah.
That's one. And the educational system, I didn't get why I'm doing a course and I'm doing a group project. But then it now occurred to me that they're trying to teach us how to be collaborative.
Yes.
So you're right. The first part of the cultural shock is in the university.
Yes.
And after that, the workplace does not prepare you. Nobody prepares you for that, to be honest. And I think
100%.
and I think that's why today's conversation is very important.
That's why we're here, preparing you for the cultural conversation.
Absolutely. So, you've been a coach to so many international students, and I would categorically say globally because they're from different countries,
I
right?
can say that.
So, what are some of the biggest cultural surprise they face when they start working in the UK?
Overall, I would say the entire journey, not even just working, but I would say the sense of time. So one of the things you were talking about earlier was the different cultures and how the work that you're doing, this is it, how the work you're doing in in university, it tends to be a lot more collaborative, and there's something about hierarchy. In a lot of countries, the hierarchy tends to go like from top, and then it's more like a pyramid. So, the boss is at the top and everybody else is underneath them, right? However, a lot of the time in the UK, that structure tends to be a lot more linear, meaning that you can collaborate with your manager. Your manager doesn't tell you what to do all the time. So that actually tends to be very common, where international students are always like, oh, I need to be told what to do. Well, you need to also come up with suggestions, and then, you're working on a project together with others. Well, that's the whole idea, right? So you wanna collaborate, you wanna see like what you can be doing together with others, how you can together come to a solution and like work on that solution in the team, where you have your own like responsibility in that team, but you're still like working towards a common goal. So that tends to be a big one. But if we get into the nitty-gritty, something that I really want to point out that a lot of students tend to get hooked upon when it comes to like their initial journey is time. The concept of time in the UK, I repeat this to all of the students I work with, is being early means that you're on time in the UK. So on time doesn't mean 2 hours later. All the hot country people over here would be like, what? What do you mean? So on time in the UK means that you're at least 10 to 15 minutes earlier to the occasion. If you're going for an interview, you need to be in the building 15 minutes before your interview starts, sitting down and relaxing. This is literally one of the criterias that employers and interviewers look for when you're going for your interview. It goes that far. If you are joining an interview online, you have to click on the link at least 5 minutes in advance so that you're ready and prepared. These are small things you would think, but those are genuinely things that people who are interviewing are actually looking for it. And if you're not showing it, there is a question mark why you're not showing it. And then when you actually get into the workplace, hopefully you're successful in that interview with all the tips that we've got for you, and that you will see on the channel. Essentially, you get to work, you try and go to your meetings on time, or at least like 5 minutes early again, or you go and you make sure that you're doing everything that you need to early on. And that kind of connects to something else I was thinking of mentioning as well. The concept of under-promising and over-delivering. This is also such a big thing in the UK culture. A lot of international students are quite used to the idea of, let me just over-promise. Let me promise the world to these employers. And then when they get to the workplace, they under-deliver. Not because they're not capable. Let me mention that. We both are internationals, and we both know that, that you can make, that there is amazing work that can be produced by international people, and there's no diss in that sense at all. However, when it comes to the over-promising and under-delivering, that's a really big red flag for a lot of locals. So I really want to strongly encourage you to under-promise and over-deliver. And that's obviously within reason. You can't be, saying, this project is going to be ready in 2 months, when you know clearly that you're going to get it done in a month. So maybe say 5 weeks and deliver it in a month, So little bit, but be wise with that.
Thank you so much for that. You mentioned something around linear approach.
Yeah.
And I think I have something to say around that, because what I've been able to discover in the UK economy is that your manager also has another manager who they are accountable to. Mm-hmm. Now, the manager has their own manager's manager, like that. So everybody is accountable.
Yes.
Compared to other countries where there's a hierarchy, nobody holds the other managers responsible for anything, so they can do things independently. And I think that's one of the things I like about the UK. So everybody is always wants to be on their A game, because somebody somewhere is actually supervising them and watching their performances, which I think is actually a good thing. And you mentioned something around timing, and I think Because when I came to the UK, what I heard about the timing is that it shows sign of respect,
Massively.
right?
Yeah.
How true is that?
Honestly, as I mentioned, it could literally make or break your interview and then make or break your professional relationships afterwards.
Do you think anybody can be rejected for coming late to an interview?
Yes. I don't think. I know for a fact. So this is one of the things that I really strongly advise you to do against. If you turn up 5 minutes late to your interview, even if you perform outstandingly in your interview, the likelihood of you getting rejected off of that interview is at 99%. So it's,
99%.
yes, people are really big on you respecting other people's time. And if there's been, there's always an agenda, there's always going to be a schedule. And if you're 5 minutes late, you're massively disrespecting, unless there has been something specific going on. Like if you're in one of the big cities, like London or Manchester or whatever that might be, where you have used like public transport and there is a known issue on the public transport and you have sent a notification at least half an hour beforehand to notify, I'm on this line and there is an issue and there is a delay. So I'm really sorry, I've tried my best to get there on time, whatever, and now I might be running 5 minutes late. If you do that, then that can be looked into kinder. But if you haven't notified and you end up turning 5 minutes late and you don't have a good excuse for it, like a solid one, like transport and so on, you're almost, 99% getting rejected.
Okay. So can you just share a story anonymously? You don't have to mention the name. Of where a cultural misunderstanding caused issue at work,
Right.
and
So
probably how was it handled?
yes. So one of the things that I really want to mention, because I'm confident that your students, the international students, will run into this, is how you handle professional relationships. So, again, we kind of touched upon cultures and different cultures being more feminine, more masculine, and so on, and hierarchical and so on. So there is obviously a difference of how things are being done. But in the UK, you want to make sure that you're respectful to absolutely everyone and that you avoid making any advances or anything that might look like an advance to people who are like to other professionals around you. And I will unveil a little bit more. And I'll give you an example. A colleague of mine who was working as a careers consultant was working closely with an international student. And it was a female colleague and the international student was male. So it could have been culturally appropriate for that student to show gratitude and to express gratitude in a way by, can I take you out for a meal in their own country? In the UK, that is wildly inappropriate to do something like that. So, I'm kind of alluding to the topic here, but if you're considering of making advances of any kind to professional staff in your university or to colleagues of yours, please just really think about that twice. Essentially, in that case, what that student did towards my colleague is essentially considered sexual harassment. So the laws in the UK are very specific about this. And,
Really?
and culturally, is wildly inappropriate to do something like that. So
You're saying that we cannot take someone out for a dinner, for a lunch, to show gratification?
to show gratitude, there's different ways of doing that. What would be extremely appropriate is to write them a little card. Thank you so much for helping me through preparing me for interview and so on. Absolutely fine. Bringing a box of chocolates for the rest of the team, for the rest of the team to enjoy in the career service and so on because you're really grateful. Perfectly fine. But asking, a female staff member, if you're a male or vice versa, for an individual one-to-one outside of the establishment, in this case, your university, for example, or your office, that is considered an advance. That is considered basically a personal invitation and is really inappropriate.
I am speechless. I know some of these things, actually, but I think it's very important for international students to actually really, really, really know. And the reason why I've said that is because I've heard similar cases over and over again. And there was someone I know who also said the same thing to me. And I said, okay, let's see how we can assist legally. Then I have to ask the question, what were the messages you were sending to this person? So when I saw where the person was at fault, and I know, you know what, you can actually escape this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
If it's something you do back home, it's understandable, but in the UK, it's not appropriate.
No. Yeah.
Now, let me ask a very controversial question now.
Sure.
Now, you said we can show appreciation using cards. Can we call them pet names using cards?
Please don't do that. You're in a professional environment. Yes. Even things like commenting on someone's appearance. Now, can I come to you and say, oh, you've got a really nice shirt on today. I really like it. Perfectly appropriate. You can comment on something like that. But for you to come in and give me a different tone, oh, you've got a nice shirt on. Do you see the difference there? It's exactly the same sentence, but now straight away you're feeling objectified, right? You're not feeling comfortable. So be very, very mindful of the tone that you're using, the comments that you're making. Commenting on someone's personal appearance with that kind of intention is inappropriate again. It's also part of the harassment, could be considered as harassment. So all of these things are just wildly inappropriate, and just be really, really mindful of how you're interacting. And then I also want to say, I don't want to scare anyone off. It's not a horrible place, but as long as you learn what the unwritten rules are of how to behave in, professional environments, you'll be okay.
I think this is going to be a very long conversation. You know why? Because now I'm thinking that probably we should do a course that shows international students some things that are unwritten in the workspace.
The unwritten rules of the
Yes.
the UK workplace.
Exactly, and we'll show them examples. Because, to be honest, right, I mean, I know myself and you would have heard few of some of the incidents that are happening in the workspace, and that is costing international students or skilled migrants a lot.
Yeah.
Some could be depressed about it. Some has been sacked from the office about it.
Very real possibility for that to happen, by the way.
Because I'm happy you mentioned that, because it's actually a very, very hot topic that really needs a series of videos, all right, and educational learnings for them to be able to properly understand, which they can always consume. I'm like, okay, I can say this, that is red flag, and stop. But I think maybe we should talk about that anyway later.
I'll be very
creating
happy
a
to.
content like that, because I know there's so many content we can actually create. Because you gave a very, very good example. The same sentences you used, but different approaches.
Yep. So your tone, the language that you're using, your, the way you go about it, facial expressions, all of that, it could be confusing in the beginning, but my big recommendation is sit back and observe. And then also, you're going to create friends, right? You're going to create friends that are going to be locals, or that, maybe or other internationals, but have lived there for a while. Ask these questions. Ask the locals these questions. If you become friends with, someone who's British or someone who's lived in the UK for a long time, absolutely ask them. They would be happy to tell you if they know you a little bit better. They wouldn't have a problem with giving you the advice and giving you a suggestion of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, just for you to feel more at home.
I'm just kind of wants to recommend something like, this is where it's important for international students to be very vocal, especially before they go into the workspace. If you are vocal while you just came into the UK, you can make some couple of mistakes and correct yourself on time before you go to the workplace where it is costly.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want it to cost your career. So definitely try and do this early on. And maybe like kind of finishing off on a higher note, I also want to mention that we we always want to think about what are the ways that you can then engage and interact. I want to give you an out, you know. One of the things that is massive in the British culture is having a drink at the pub on a Friday night, or Friday, you know, it's Thursday evening nowadays after COVID. Whatever it is, just going out with your colleagues together, a group activity, that's very important to mention, where you can chat to others and where you can interact and so on. Something like that can be really, really useful for you to do in order for you to learn a little bit more about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And I have to say, you don't have to drink. You don't have to drink an alcoholic drink. You can absolutely have a juice or whatever you prefer, so that you can show yourself in the best, most professional way, even outside of work. That would be a strong recommendation. You definitely don't want to embarrass yourself. But essentially, that is definitely something that you can do, and it is something that is called a bonding activity in the UK. So definitely try that out, and build the relationships with your colleagues that way. If there is a team activity that is being done, if there is, you're going somewhere to meet a client and then people are grabbing a drink afterwards, absolutely stay for those things. Get to know people on a more personal level. Maybe sharing about, do they have cats and dogs and kids and whatever it is that they want to, mention that is a safe topic. Absolutely discuss those things. Discuss travel. These are all really safe things that you can be talking about in a more professional environment that will build some form of a stronger relationship. And you will see that people will feel warmer to you the next time that you are approaching them professionally as well.
So, are there anything international students should prepare for before going into workforce?
Written communication. There is, as you know already, there is very strict rules around CVs. There's very strict rules around cover letters. There's very strict rules around email communication. I want to mention here as well, because that's essentially part of written communication, pictures. If you're using your WhatsApp to message your line manager because, I don't know, you got sick that day and you can't come into work or whatever, is the picture on WhatsApp appropriate for your line manager to see?
So, now you talk about WhatsApp.
Yes.
So, is it just safe for me to just not chat with my manager with my WhatsApp?
Look, that would be an ideal situation. Does it always happen? Sometimes you might need to. What I'm trying to say is always make sure that you have a professional picture on there. I'll give you a very brief example. Even when you are in university, I was preparing this specific student over Teams for, I don't know, interview preparation or something. And the picture that they have on their university Teams account is literally a picture of a massive tattoo on their back. And I'm like, do I really want to see a picture of your naked back and your massive tattoo on your back when I'm trying to prepare you? Do you really want your employers who you're about to join with that same Teams picture want to see that? So really question this for yourself very carefully and examine yourself. And this is just general about how you show up on social media, how you, and also when you Google yourself, do you come up with appropriate content like LinkedIn, professional network? Do you come up with the achievements, awards that you maybe gained in your studies? Are you talking smartly? Are you commenting on topics? Even if you're not creating your own posts, you're at least commenting on like relevant topics. So all of these things are things that people look at. And also, just to let you know, as a graduate, the likelihood of you being Googled by your graduate recruiter and your Facebook picture being sought after and your content that you shared on there being seen is pretty high. I think there was some sort of a stat. I will not remember the exact figure, but it was a wild one. I think that it was something in the 70% that your graduate recruiter will look for you, will Google you, and will find at least your LinkedIn profile. So if 70 to 80% of your applications end up to your LinkedIn profile or any other social media, will I see you the same professional in the same professional way that you would like to be seen in or not? So, these things are definitely important to consider.
I think they are very important. I think coaches have been talking about this for a long time. That how you show up on your social media is very important.
Yes.
A little bit diversion here because I know we are in the UK talking about UK stuff, right? The US had to put a hold on student applications, and now they want to do thorough checks on their social media before giving them visas. All right. So, and this kind of topic we'll be talking like when I was still in uni, they spoke about how important it is for you to have a good social media presence, but professional.
Yes.
And you spoke about LinkedIn being a professional space. I've seen some LinkedIn profile pictures that are shot in the beach. Ridiculous.
Or in the pub.
Exactly.
A quick tip, most of universities right now will have some sort of a LinkedIn headshot option, potentially. Or at this point in time, most of you will have a decent phone, or your friend will have a decent phone. Just grab a neutral background, put a blazer or a button up at the least, and get yourself a nice picture. It's not difficult. At this stage, you have no excuse. No excuse to have a sad selfie, with dim lighting and so on. People want to see your face. Never put it on a CV. Let me just put it out there because we still see CVs with pictures, which is a big no-no in the UK. Don't put it on a CV, but this is what your LinkedIn is for.
Thank you so much for that, Isi. So just on the very last note, right? What advice would you give to someone who is already in their first job? Peradventure, they didn't listen to this before they got into their first job. So what advice would you give to them?
Find someone who will be an advocate for you, who you maybe have already befriended in your workplace, and you trust them, and ask them this question. Is there anything that you have seen that I'm doing currently that you might recognize as inappropriate or potentially an unwritten rule that you have seen that I maybe don't follow in the workplace? Or basically, is there anything that I can do in order to do better professionally? Alternatively, if you have a good relationship with your manager, you can also ask them that question. Is there anything I can do that I can step up professionally, that I can do better, that would be, a useful thing for me to know and to learn? It's not a problem, whatever mistakes you might have done, it's okay. We all have done mistakes. That's perfectly fine. But the key thing is definitely try your best to fix yourself up while you can.
Thank you so much for that, Isi. It was a very short conversation, but extremely powerful. And I think we should have a series of these to go on. And most importantly, it is the unwritten rules in the workforce,
Yes.
because a lot of international students, I repeat, fall victim of that.
Yes.
A lot of international students fall victim of that. But thank you so much for this time. Okay, and I'm sure they've been able to listen appropriately. I mean, you're always giving us gems as always, anyway. But yeah, thank you so much.